It felt like someone was yanking on him, like really hard. I looked at my midwife. I was like, "Are you pulling on him?" And she was like, "Nope, flip over right now." I had no idea why she said that at that time.
I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kayla Heater, follower of Jesus, wife and mother of 5 children, Christian childbirth educator and doula, and your host of the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, where we share God-centered birth stories, evidence-based birth education, and our pursuit of surrendering our birth plans to God. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Happy week. Happy Monday, or whatever day it is. My husband gets tired of me saying that every week, but if this is the first time you are listening, then you would have never heard me say that before. And I genuinely do hope you are having a good week, or a better week than the Heater family. We are in the midst of, I guess, what you would refer to as a first world struggle. But we have been a 2-car family for several years now, and we have almost 6 kids and differing schedules, and we have had to be a 1-car family for a while now. We have had an unbelievable amount of car issues in the last several weeks, and it's just comical at this point. I'm at the point where if I don't laugh, I will cry, even though I have cried multiple times about our car situation. We've always bought cars for cash. We always buy older cars, not like completely a total dump, but like something reliable, something that will run and last us a long time, but we're trying not to have a car payment, right? Anyways, we had 2007s, both of us. My husband had a truck and I have a van, and we are planning on replacing the van later this year with a bigger van that will hold, one of those like 12 to 15 passenger vans, because we're going to need another space for this little baby and another car seat. And we are maxed out in our current van. So we've been saving every little penny for this van that we're going to get, sometime this year, hopefully by the end of the year. And a big chunk of that savings just went into repairing my husband's truck. It broke down multiple times over the course of a few weeks. It was wild. He'll be like, "Kayla, why'd you tell that whole story?" So I'm not going to tell the whole story, but the short version is, after spending lots of money on it, the truck died a terrible death. And we feel like we just poured thousands of dollars into the toilet and flushed it away. So that was really hard to take, especially because that wasn't even the car that we were trying to replace. So it has been an adventure. We've been borrowing cars. Multiple cars have continued to break down, even though the truck was already broke. I mean, it's just been wild. And I'm on call, so that's always been nerve-wracking, and it's been crazy. And I told my mom yesterday, I said, literally, I feel like if I was Laura Ingalls Wilder, I would not have these issues. She was like, "Are you ready for a horse and buggy?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am," even though I know living in the 1800s comes with several other issues. Anyways, I'm just sort of over it, but trying to take it one day at a time. So if you think about it, pray for the Heater's car situation right now, for it is a very unfortunate one. And we are trying to work it out, praying that the Lord works it out. It has been a not fun adventure. Okay, moving on. So I went to go check and see if I could read a new review, and my heart was a little sad because we haven't had a review in like 2 months now. So I know there are hundreds of you that listen to this podcast, but there are only like 40 some reviews on Apple, which means I know several of you have not left a written review. And I know that sounds like tedious and time consuming, but I promise it only takes about 1 minute of your day. And it does so much for this podcast. So if this podcast has ever encouraged you or made you laugh or made you cry or taught you something or just been beneficial to you in any way, the smallest thing you could do is to go on Apple Podcasts and scroll down on our podcasts and just click write a review. It would be so incredibly helpful because, in 2025, the more reviews you have, the more it will suggest your podcast to other people, listening to similar things. And so the more people will find this. And so the more women and families out there will benefit from these stories and this information, which is our heart and our passion for this. And more people will hear the love of Jesus. So you can be a part in spreading that message and spreading that gospel and spreading this information just simply by leaving a review. I am really excited to hopefully read a new review next week on the show. That would be my goal. So even if this is your first time listening, or if you've been listening from the beginning, anytime in between, if you haven't written a review yet, we would really, really appreciate it so much. Okay, let's get into this week's episode. When you've been trying to conceive for months, and then you finally do, you think you'd be grateful for every part of pregnancy. But that's rarely the case for a mom with hyperemesis gravardarium, also known as HG. When HG hit hard for Alexandria, not only did she lose a massive amount of weight in a short amount of time, but she lost her faith too. If God was a good God, why didn't he take this thorn from her side? To top it all off, as she prayed for a girl, but she found out it was a boy, she felt forgotten and abandoned altogether. To her, and to many HG moms out there, how could this possibly be worth it? How could feeling like you were on your deathbed every single day for months on end be worth it? Listen today to find out how God redeemed Allie's story and reignited her faith through the beautiful home birth she had been dreaming of and praying for, and how this story was better than the one she would have written for herself. Well, welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and I have Allie back with me today. Or do you prefer to be called Alexandria? I don't know. Which one?
Honestly, either's okay. I'm good with whatever you want to call me.
So Allie was on episode 47 of the podcast, where she came and told us about her first two birth stories along with their adoption story, birth story. It was like an adoption birth story, which was so cool. And now she has since had her fourth. And so excited to hear that story. But for those who aren't going to go back and listen to that episode right at this moment, would you mind just telling everyone a little bit about you and your life and your family and help us get to know you?
Yeah, so we're a family of 6 now, getting used to saying that. And we recently moved about a month ago to Washington State from North Carolina. We just felt really called to be here. We're not really sure what that entails. We just know that this is where we're supposed to be, and we're kind of being patient in the waiting, seeing what God has for us here. But we had our son right after we got married, like a year after we got married in 2017. So he's about to be 8. We have a daughter. She just turned 4 in February. Our son that we adopted at birth is 2 now. He turned 2 a couple days after we moved. And now we have Calvin, and he is 4 months old now. He was our first home birth. So,
Yeah.
And the best.
That's funny. My fourth was also my first home birth and the best. I'm looking forward to hearing why it was the best.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Okay. So I guess we're talking like 15 months or so ago. The pregnancy, was this something we were like looking forward to with anticipation, really trying for, or was this something like the Lord just dropped in your lap?
Yeah, so we found out that we were pregnant in June of 2024, and we were so excited. We had been trying since November or December, so 6 or 7 months. And we had some like super, super early miscarriages that were really hard for us, because when we had a miscarriage first. And then our second just happened, first time, like no problem. And so we were kind of expecting that. And then it kind of just brought back that trauma. So it was a little hard for us. I actually found out we were pregnant at the Welcome Center on our way to Vermont to go camping. I was so excited and got to share it with family, which was something kind of new for us. But we really just wanted to feel supported, no matter what the outcome was. My son was actually the first one to know. He went into the bathroom with me, and we had just picked up a pregnancy test we just went into a grocery store, and I was like, I'm going to pick one up. Like, I think I'm 1 or 2 weeks late. I'm not really sure. And my husband's like, oh, okay, well, like whatever. And so I took the pregnancy test at the Welcome Center, and I would say not even 5 seconds later, it was very clearly positive. And so I came out of the stall smiling, and my son's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Don't tell anyone I'm pregnant." So at that time he was 6, and he walked out, and he had a smile on his face, and my husband wasn't looking. He was just at a picnic table with the other kids. I went up to him and told him, and he was so happy, but you could also tell he was like, "Okay, I'm a little terrified now." And so that week we were there camping was so fun, but I also started to really get concerned. I wasn't getting sick, and usually it hits pretty fast for me. So that whole week we were there, it was more like 10 days. I was like, okay, God, am I actually pregnant? What's going on? And so I prayed the prayer I probably shouldn't have prayed, God, please, give me a sign that I'm actually pregnant. And so we got home back to North Carolina, and I would say within that week, it all went downhill.
Mm.
I did not realize that I had HG with my other pregnancies. I just knew that it was really bad morning sickness it's what I was told. The first pregnancy, I lost about 20 pounds in the first 2 months. Second pregnancy, I lost about 30 pounds in the first 2 months. And then this pregnancy, I lost 30 pounds in 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
My eyes were sunken in. I couldn't eat. I was getting 2 IVs a week, one at home and one not at home. I think that started around 6 weeks. And from then on, that's what it was like. I couldn't get out of bed. It was the hardest time I've ever had in my life.
Harder than your first 2 pregnancies.
Oh, absolutely. Put those together. Harder than that. Also, it was a time our youngest was 1. And, I feel that's a really crucial time for bonding and communication and all the things, especially for him being adopted. And I was not present at all. I literally laid in bed and slept. I watched The Waltons, the whole series of The Waltons and Little House on the Prairie, because it just kept my mind off of it. So I feel I missed out on so much, and I just felt so guilty. And my husband, thank God, works from home, and he went from, being an active parent for sure, but to being the only parent.
Yeah.
To our 3 kids. And that was so much for him. And I think you said you also have HG or hyperemesis when you're pregnant. And it was so frustrating because we shared our need. We need obviously prayer, but I think the job of the church is to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And we did not get to experience that at all when it came to us being in need. I needed someone to just make my kids a meal that wasn't peanut butter and jelly, because I'm the one that cooks, not my husband.
Right.
And the smells of cooking in the house were enough to just
make you throw up.
Make me throw up. My mom came and visited, and I was like, whatever you do, do not cook that pork in the house. Don't do it. And she kind of was like, well, it's in the Instant Pot. It's totally fine.
Oh no.
Absolutely not. It was so hot. I remember sweating, and I was hot, and I was just sitting there with a bucket on the back porch puking because I couldn't be in the house.
Because the whole house smelled like the pork.
So we reached out, and we were we need prayers, of course, but I need someone to hang out with my kids, or
give my husband a break.
Give my husband a break, or bring a meal. I don't even care if it's Chick-fil-A, whatever it's got to be, just something. And we were met with complete silence. And that was so hard. And that's, I think, when I started really hardening my heart to God, just being okay, like, why are these people, like, why did you put these people in my, like, why are we going to this church? you know, if I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I would say around 10 or 12 weeks pregnant, I just totally shut down. And I was like, God, just like either take me or take the baby. Like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm done. I was just like laying on the floor, like crying. And I tried everything. Everyone's like, try ginger, try this,
Oh,
try,
yeah. Well,
eat
it
a
does
high,
nothing for
it does
HG.
nothing. High protein diet, get fresh air, like try this vitamin before you get out of bed, take tiny sips of water, like do all the things. I went to an herb shop and like was like, what can I do? And got chiropractic adjustments. I did everything I possibly could, and it just nothing worked. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done. So it's me or the baby or both. I can't do this. And so then there was so much guilt that like came with that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I know that that's not what I wanted, but at that moment I did. And I finally was like, okay, you know what? This is the thing I'm going to hold on to. And it was, God's going to give me the baby girl that I want. Like, we'll have a boy, a girl, and we had adopted our son, and we wanted another girl. And so I was like, God, make it worth it. Like, I really want to have a baby girl. And we went at 18 weeks to the ultrasound, and it was so clear that it was a boy. And I felt so bad for the ultrasound tech because she couldn't even finish like doing the anatomy scan because I was just crying and like sobbing. And that's like that moment I was like, I'm done. Like, God does not care about me. He does not see me and my hurt enough to like give me this one thing to hold on to. Like, I'm just done. And that also made it really hard on my husband because, he was like, let's just keep praying through this. Like, God's got a plan and all the things. And I was like, don't talk to me about it. I don't care. I'm done. Like, me and God, we're done. And that's how the rest of the pregnancy felt. Like, just done. I don't want anything to do with God. I don't think he has a place for me. I don't think that he has any part in this pregnancy or this baby. I think I'm just existing. I don't think God has like, who is he? I don't even know. And in a way that kind of made things easier because I had completely detached myself from like who I was
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't her anymore. I was just like, I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was just sick, like depressed mess.
Yeah. Did anybody know you were going through this besides your husband in terms of like not just the sickness, but like on top of that, the crisis of faith you were having at the same time?
Yeah, I had one close friend who I remember she reached out to me and she was like, it's just that like God has a plan. And I've really come to not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like hearing that, even now. And I remember texting her back or voice messaging, like, honestly, I think that's a pile of poo because I don't know what I'm doing right now, but like it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it's God from God. It just I'm existing and I don't really think I believe in him anymore. And she was like, I think that was the moment where she realized like that I was truly struggling in my faith or that it had not even wasn't even existent anymore. And she was like, I am so sorry. Like this is bigger than, what, this is gonna have to be between you and God. And I know that he's gonna redeem this. I was like, yeah, whatever. But of course, she was like my biggest support, but she also had just had a baby, and so she was in the throes of postpartum too. And so she was not able to be like that available to me, which is totally fine. I completely understand that. So it really was just my husband that knew that I was going through this, and I know that he prayed for me every single day, even on the hardest days. He takes a shower, and that's where he does his praying, and you can hear him in there praying. And I know that I was always covered in prayer by him. So he was born February 24th, which was his due date. But on January 5th, 34 weeks pregnant, I started having prodromal labor. So from 5 p.m. until 12 p.m. every single night, 5 minutes apart contractions, like clockwork. It was absolutely horrible. I was miserable. And it just added on to that, like, what is this? I'm so done. Just get him
Mm-hmm.
out of me. I'm so done. I was also at the same time though equally as excited because this was our first home birth. And since having my daughter 4 years ago, I got into doing birth photography and doula primarily with home birth clients. And it was just, I saw how beautiful their recovery was. And just the experience was God breathed. So there was like this little part in the back of my mind that was still holding on to like the faith of like, maybe God has this really cool birth for me. I don't know. Does he actually play a role in birth? I don't know. We're going to find out. So 6 weeks of prodromal labor, everything was going well. At 34 weeks, he was transverse. And then at 35, he flipped the correct way. So I think we discussed it in the episode 47. My daughter was breech until 2 or 3 days before I gave birth.
Mm-hmm.
And we had her in a hospital. And so, as you know, that's just not like, they don't do that, right? And at that time, I didn't know about Breech Without Borders or home birth or anything like that. And so it was a big series of interventions. Like, if she doesn't flip, we're going to give you we're like, you have to have a C-section. We're going to try the version and all the things. But my placenta was on top of her head, so they couldn't do that. And it was like so much anxiety and so much fear. So when I found out that he had been transverse, which is obviously like not a birthable position.
Right. You can't get them out that way.
You can't come out that way, buddy. It really like triggered that fear and anxiety again of like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to birth a breech baby? So I woke up on February 24th at 4 a.m. and had contractions, all the prodromal labor was at night before midnight, and then it would stop. So I kind of knew something was different. But by 6 a.m., the sun came up and everything went away. I would have maybe one really strong contraction, one or two every hour throughout the whole day. So we did a lot of walking. My husband was walking. My sister also flew in, and this was another big prayer. I feel like a lot of my struggles with God throughout the pregnancy were that I would put out this really big ask, and just, it would be like, if you're a good God, then you will do this for me.
Mm.
Like grasping for anything. And so it was like, okay, my sister's here. She's our only support that we have. And if you're a good God, I'm going to have this baby while she's here. So she was there for a week before my due date and a week after. And so we hit the like 1 week mark. She's been here for a week and you only have another week left with her. I'm starting to get pretty frustrated and angry with God even more, because I'm like, I need her, and my husband needs her, my kids need her. Get this baby out. So she did end up being there, of course, but that day she took the kids and went to the park, which was such a blessing. I tried resting, but the contraction that I was having like once or twice an hour was so strong, and it felt just not quite right. And so we had a chiropractic appointment scheduled for that day. And I was like, I'm not going to be comfortable in a car right now. Is there any chance you guys can come to our house and adjust us? And they're like, absolutely. So around 6:45 that night, I had made burgers for dinner, ate lots of protein just in case things picked up. They came around 6:45 and adjusted the whole family.
Cool.
I had no idea that my husband had texted our midwife from my phone and said, hey, something's just like off. Like, do you mind just coming and checking her out? And I had an appointment scheduled with her for the next day. And she was like, yeah, not a problem. I'm on my way. So she shows up as they're leaving. And I'm like, oh, hi. Like,
What are
what's
you
going
doing
on?
here?
What are you doing here? And she was like, I'm just here to check you out. I'm good. Like, she said, I'm not even going to I'm not going to count this as like a labor check-in. This is just a prenatal check-in. Like, no pressure. I'm just going to see how you're doing. Because I was pretty darn convinced that he had flipped and he was breech, or just in a very wonky, weird position that's not going to allow this to be a good experience. So she checked. He was in a great position, head down. Heart rate was wonderful. And that was at 7 o'clock. And by 7:30, I was having contractions every 4 minutes.
And did your midwife stay or did she leave?
She did. She stuck around. She was like, I just want to see, like, I want to kind of put my eyes on you, see how, like, a contraction's going for you, what it looks like, and, let's see if we can make this a little more comfortable. And I was like, yeah, but they're only once every, like, hour. You don't need to stay for that. She's like, no, 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 I'm going to stay. I was like, okay, whatever. And we're also friends. So I was like, what, you do you. You want to hang out? You hang out. And so 7 o'clock she was there, did that. 7:30, they're about every 4 to 5-ish minutes apart. And based off my previous birth, things were going to go fast. But also at the same time, I was like, I'm not getting my hopes up. And then I would say around 8:15, so that's 45 minutes later after things started, I remember like sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm just like breathing through a contraction, probably a little more vocal than just breathing. And the contraction's over and she just like put her hand on my shoulder. It's like, hey, I'm gonna call my assistant. And I was like, why?
What's the point of that?
And she was like, well, you're in labor. And I was like, I feel like I'm fine. I think it's gonna be a while. And she was like, they're every 2 minutes. And I was like, are you sure? And so she called the assistant. We started getting the tub filled up, which was so exciting because I had never done water birth before. I really just hadn't experienced like labor, because when you go to the hospital, there's just like intervention after intervention, like people touching you, people asking you to do things. And so like it was just like so natural. Nothing was rushed or hurried. And so it actually felt like even though it was such a small amount of time in terms of like labor for some women, it felt like it was taking the perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
Which was a prayer I had prayed. And so that was like the first. So the first one was my sister was there. That was a prayer that was answered. The second one was that my midwife makes it.
Mm-hmm.
And my third one was that I would get to experience water birth. And then another prayer was that it wouldn't be too fast and it wouldn't be too long, that I would actually get to experience birth, but in a not too fast and not too long, unsafe way. So midwife assistant got there around 9 o'clock. We had the tub filled and I labored in there until he was born. And I know that every 30 to 45 minutes, like we've got to have like some movement, a position change, like, even if it's just like standing up, sitting down, right? And so I knew she was about to tell me, like, hey, you need to switch something up because it had been an hour. It was 10 o'clock now. And I was like, I don't want to. I just looked at her and I was like, I'm not doing that. She was like, I know, but like, can you just like stand up and then you can sit right back down and you can get cozy and comfortable like where you are. And so I went to kind of like start to get up a little bit because I was kind of just relaxing in the back of the pool, like breathing through everything, probably screaming through everything at that point. And I went to go get up and that was at 10:22. It took a whole like 20 minutes to convince me like you got to get up.
To stand up.
Yep. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I went to like go kind of like just move forward and get up. And I was like, my water broke. And based off of past, that means things
You're
are
about
about
to
to get
have a baby. Yeah.
really real. So that was at 10:22. 10:26, I started pushing. And at the time of the rupture of membranes, I said, you've got to go get the kids. They wanted to be there, my older two. And I said, you have to go get the kids. And they were like, no, 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 not yet. Like, just take your time. Like, it's okay. And then, so that would be like 4 minutes later, I was like, gives me like chills, like the natural urge. Like, I literally could not push. I could not like stop it. My whole body was just like expelling this baby from my body. And I was like, go get the kids.
Was your sister, was that her job?
Yeah. So she was like, she didn't know what to expect at all, which was so funny to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So she just kind of like stayed busy, which was so wonderful. There was plenty of things for her to do. So like heating up water for the tub, and then she went to go get the kids. And they came in and at 10:28 started like really pushing. 10:31 head came out And I'm so glad my husband took a video of the birth, but I was still in that like reclined, comfy position. And I was like, can I feel him? So I reached down and felt him, put my hand back up, but then it felt like someone was yanking on him, like really hard. And it hurt worse than his head coming out. I looked at my midwife. I was like, are you pulling on him? And she was like, nope, flip over right now. I had no idea why she said that
I
at
think I
that
have an
time.
idea.
Yeah. And then 28 seconds later, he was born. I remember later on, I think it was maybe our 2 day postpartum, 2 or 3 day visit after, I was like, so why did you have me do that? What was going on? And she was like, so that feeling, he had his hand, I guess, like here. And she said that feeling was him actually going back up inside of you. And so he was kind of like stuck.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
she had me flip over, get into that like runner's lunge
Mm-hmm.
position, and one push and he was out. But the beautiful part was like that wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like, okay, I need you to flip over now. Keep your bottom under the water. Give me one good push. And that was it. But like in another setting, that would have been like a medical emergency,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so then he was out, right on my chest. I was like, oh my gosh, I did that. Just that like birth high. It was the moment that I had envisioned. Like the little, like God actually cares about those little tiny prayers. Like I put out those big ones, right? That were like, God, if you love me, like make this pregnancy worth it. Let it be a girl. Those were like huge asks and prayers. And like, of course, God cares about those too. But looking at the actual birth and like labor experience, I prayed so many little prayers. Like, let my midwife be there, let my sister be there. I don't want it to be too long or too short. I want it to be in the water, and I want to have him placed on my chest afterwards. And I want the delivery of the placenta to happen naturally. And I want all this stuff. Like, and I did pray those. And they honestly were like really half hearted prayers because I didn't even know if I believed in God at that time anymore. But I was just throwing it out there because I was like, you know what? It doesn't hurt. And like every single prayer that I prayed for the birth and delivery and labor, all those things, every single one was answered.
Mm.
And I had the exact experience that I was envisioning and hoping for. Postpartum previously had severe depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, all the things. And I was put on different medications for that with the other two kids. And I just felt like on cloud nine for like weeks, even though I was like exhausted. And there were those evening, like emotional times where I was like, I can't stop crying and I don't know why. I still felt so good. And I love all my children so equally in different ways. I've never been this bonded to a baby, ever. I don't remember. The kids have been asking me like, Mom, did I do that when I was a baby? And I genuinely don't know. And my answer is just kind of like, go ask your dad. Like, I don't remember you as a baby. I don't remember enjoying you. I don't remember holding you. It was such like a blur of anxiety and depression and medication, like just to survive. And there is no doubt in my mind that the home birth experience and the immediate bonding and the uninterruption to the bonding experience those first weeks played such a big role in that. And we're at 4 months, and like I still just like sniff him and kiss him, and it's just like the best thing that I've ever experienced still. There was a really long time in my walk with God prior to this pregnancy where people would say like, oh, what's your testimony? You're like, I don't really know. I guess I've just kind of like known God my whole life a little bit, or known of him, or gone to church, whatever it is. I don't really have a big testimony. And I feel like I have one now. I have what I'm going to tell my children. And there's no doubt that if we ever do this again, I'm going to get really sick again. But I also know now that like the redemption that comes after that is so much more beautiful because of how hard that was.
Mm.
It's been incredible. Both my husband and I are like, we could do this 20 more times. Like, it's been such a good experience. And I feel like I finally am living in the motherhood that God's called me to live in, because I actually am experiencing this, like, from start to finish. Like, I'm going to experience, he's going to be the first one, like, start to finish. I am experiencing this, which is just, I don't know, it's beautiful in so many ways.
Yeah. I'm so happy for that, for you, for the redemption, because I didn't know how the story ended. Like, especially when you told me that you guys really wanted a girl and it was a boy, and the devastation that comes with that on top of already being so sick. I've been there, and I just remember how dark and isolating it felt. Just kind of like you, like, how was I ever going to come out of this? How was it
Yeah,
ever going to get any better?
it's so scary. Like, you're very alone, and even doctors don't really know much about hyperemesis or how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what worked for me was like an unconventional, way of handling it, but like, it wasn't anything that a doctor was able to like tell me. And yeah, it's really isolating. That's a really good way to put it. It's, you kind of just sit there like all day thinking about how sick I am and how awful this is, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm. The amount I can relate to in your story is more than the average person's story. I can tell you that when you were talking about praying for God to take your life or your babies, I just got goosebumps all over my body, because I vividly remember I was about 14 weeks with our third, and I was on the floor, and I had just thrown up again. And I was like sobbing on the bathroom floor, crying and praying out to God for a miscarriage. Like, please. I remember saying, give this baby to somebody who thinks it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it's worth it. In that moment, I mean, you're
You
so
truly mean it. Like,
yeah, you
I,
do.
it's desperation to like feel anything
Mm-hmm.
that's not sick.
Yeah. You just want to
Yeah.
feel alive again, because you feel, I mean, it does. I describe it as if feeling like death, like you feel like death. You feel like
Oh,
this is what might it must feel like to die.
yeah, it's the closest thing I think that I, I'm sure there's other things, but like for me in my life, like that's the closest I've ever come to just like, this must be what death is like. This must
Mm-hmm.
be like, I truly feel like I'm dying. And in a way, I mean, you are so sick that like there's like potential for it to be like deathly. Like it can kill your baby from malnutrition, and it can hurt you. There's moms that have feeding tubes
Mm-hmm.
because they can't get any nutrition. I mean, I recently went for a blood draw just to like check vitamin levels and everything, postpartum, and like my veins are just like full of scar tissue, and it hurts so bad because I had so many IVs, just to like be semi okay sometimes and not be severely dehydrated. And
Mm-hmm.
I've heard other moms talk about HG post PTSD,
Yeah.
and I've never, I mean, like, I feel like the fear of it ever happening again. That's always been there. But this week, actually, a couple days ago, I woke up and I had a little bit of a stomach ache. I accidentally took some of my vitamins before I ate breakfast, and my stomach was just like not happy. And my whole body started shaking, and I was sweating, and I just like started like uncontrollably crying, and like I was just like frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband was like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "My stomach hurts." Like, and it just brought me right back to like laying in bed for months and
Yeah.
being so sick. And I was like, okay, so this is what that's like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a whole nother thing to work through. There's foods that I will never be able to eat again, and like just memories that are completely ruined, because of that.
Oh, yes. I can think of the foods I'll never eat
Yeah.
again and
Yep.
get nauseous at the thought of it. I think I was talking about this with another podcast guest at one point a long time ago, but there is music I cannot listen to again, because I listen to it when I was nauseous, and all it does is remind me of being nauseous. Like,
Yeah.
which is really sad. So I intentionally, like, ever since I learned that was a thing, I think I learned that my third, I have intentionally avoided like music, like a lot of music, certain, obviously lots of scents, but like a lot of things, just so I'm like, I want to be able to enjoy that again one day. So I have to stay away from it right now. Like,
Yeah.
or else I'll never be able to enjoy it again. When you talked about sobbing at your ultrasound, with our fourth, so we had girl, boy, boy, and we were pregnant with our fourth. And I, of course, wanted it to be a girl because I thought, two girls, two boys, like this will be
Yeah, it'd be
great.
perfect, right?
Everyone will have a sister and a brother, and this is what our family needs. And I felt really confident that it was a girl, like all these things. And so we go to the ultrasound. I was naive enough to invite my kids to this one. Big
Yep.
mistake.
Oh, big
And
mistake.
and I was so upset and depressed. Like when I found out it was a boy, I like could not get it together. And I remember that night, after all the kids were in bed, I was looking at my husband because, we had said this is our last kid, like we're not going to have any more, and that whole spiel. And I was so uncontrollably devastated. And obviously, I'm sure hormones played a factor into this, but when you have HG, it takes almost nothing for you to throw up. You could sneeze, you could cough, you could do whatever, and you'll throw up. So I started crying and I threw up all over the ultrasound photos that proved he was a boy. because,
Oh my
because
gosh.
because I was so sad, but the sadness like triggered me throwing up again. So,
Yeah.
gosh, it was wild.
That night that we found out, there is a lot that goes into it, other than just, oh, it's a boy. It was so much deeper than like, I want a boy versus a girl. My grandmother had passed away the previous year, and we were going to name a girl after her, and that meant a lot to me. And then, um, the bond was already like really greatly suffering between me and our adopted youngest, our son. And I was like, I feel like I'm a really bad mom to him. Like, I don't want to have another boy, because I was associating like having another boy with being not a great mom.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I was like, I'm a better mom to
To a girl.
to a girl. I'll be a better mom to a girl. And yeah, I remember laying there on the ultrasound table, and she was trying to finish the ultrasound, and my daughter also really wanted a sister, and she was laying there and she was like, that's that's not a vagina. And she was like, no, it's a penis. And she was like, but if it's a penis, that means it's a boy. And my husband had our youngest on his back in the carrier, and he was out in the other room because he was screaming. So I was like all by myself with my two older kids, and they're asking all these questions. I'm like, just stop. Like, it's a boy. We're done. We're going home. I'm done. We did fun pictures when we got home with some confetti. We promised they could do that. And I sobbed and puked everywhere, just like you were explaining. Not all over the ultrasound pictures though. um, but I sobbed and was so sick, and I made myself. We did the pictures, and there was confetti all around me in the kitchen, and the kids went to bed, and I just grabbed a blanket and I fell asleep on the floor in the kitchen, like trying to make myself, like, put myself right there, surrounded by blue confetti. This is what's happening.
Mm.
But it was also like, why? Why did this have to happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't this just go well? But like, honestly, I've never loved a baby more. He's like my little, I call him my booby barnacle baby, and he's just wonderful. And
So
yeah,
tell us more then. How did you get from questioning your faith? I don't even know if I believe in God. God obviously doesn't care about me if he's real. I'm so sick. He gave me a boy. I wanted a girl. Like, all this is going horribly. How did you get from there to God is good? He's real and he's good.
the labor and birth, I realized in the days that were after that, that those small prayers meant so much more to me in the long run, like having that experience and getting to be with him and love him and experience all of these beautiful moments postpartum with him. That meant so much more to me than not being sick. But of course, when I'm sick, that meant more.
Right.
Like, God, take away the sickness. But realizing that, like, he knew my heart. Like, if I was going to have one or the other, I would have chosen this.
Mm-hmm.
I would have chosen this experience. And he knew that. I did the 5 days in bed, 5 days on bed, 5 days around bed
Mm-hmm.
ish. That's a whole other thing. And I got the 5 days in bed. And so I feel like that leaves so much more time for like reflection, and you don't have any responsibilities other than keeping the baby alive. And that was the first time I've ever done that. And during that, I just realized that every little prayer, every tiny little ask that I had of God, even when I didn't actually know if I believed that the prayer I was praying was even going out there doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
was answered. And even my husband would just, he'd be like, look at him, look at you, like you're alive and you gave birth and it went exactly how you wanted. And it was the beautiful experience that you prayed for, down to like the timing. I said I wanted, it's so specific. I said I wanted a 3-hour birth because my last one was 2 and it was just too short,
Mm-hmm.
especially with, going to the hospital and all those things. And so I prayed I wanted a 3-hour birth, and it was 3 hours and 2 minutes.
Wow.
Like, just those little things, and realizing that God loved me enough to look past the fact that I was like cursing his name and still hear those little prayers and answer them, so that I could have this experience and really truly dive into motherhood for the first time with our 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he loved me enough to care about the small things, that really that big thing that I prayed for the sickness to go away, or for me or the baby to go away, like, he knew that that's not the prayer that I wanted answered and the true prayer that I wanted answered. He knew that I wanted this experience, and that this experience, this postpartum experience and birth, would push me into being who he called me to be. Like, had he answered, God, take me or the baby, like, would I have ever believed in him again if he actually did that?
Right.
Or if he had taken the sickness away, like, how would that have changed the trajectory of my faith? Like, it really wouldn't. I mean, sure, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I prayed this prayer and then the next day I wasn't sick anymore. How cool is that? But that would be like the end of it, right? Whereas this is like, I am learning to be present as a mom, and I'm learning to disciple my children, and I'm learning to pray little prayers for my children, because I'm realizing that those are the ones that matter. Like, him choosing to not answer those big ones that I had and answering these tons of small prayers and giving me that this experience is pushing me forward in a way that those other ones wouldn't have. And so, like, he does see the bigger picture that we don't see. And I think that's setting me up for this experience that we're going through right now, moving across the country, and we don't know why. We have no idea why we're here. My husband felt called. I was like, you know what? I actually kind of feel peace about that. Sure, let's do it. Let's sell our homestead. Let's do everything. And I have no idea what's next for us. We're actually sitting in a really hard time right now. Our house still hasn't sold in North Carolina. We're renting here. We're in like a development. We don't like it. The kids are like, where's my 2 acres to play? And we have no idea what the purpose of this season is. But I am constantly reminding myself not to like forget to pray the little prayers. Like, God, like, what I really want. You know that I want to have chickens again. You know that it meant a lot of us to like be somewhere where we could get fresh air all the time. And we are. It's not too hot. We're doing that. And so I really feel like a year and a half ago when we got pregnant, I had no idea that this was coming, but he did. And he's just setting us up for success by letting me struggle.
Letting you learn from your experience of what felt like never-ending sickness, but led to this beautiful, beautiful blessing of a boy. And now, like, having that experience, being able to be like, well, right now it's hard. We don't know why you called us here. We don't know why we're where we are, why our house hasn't sold, et cetera, et cetera. But knowing that down the line, like with your faith, he'll reveal to you in time, like,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to see, eventually after you patiently wait, what his plans are and why he's doing all this.
Yeah. There's so much to learn. And I think that I never would have, just in the 4 months, my faith wouldn't have deepened. We wouldn't have moved. I would not have like the faith and the trust that God has a plan had I not experienced what I experienced during pregnancy and directly postpartum.
Yeah.
Sometimes it hits me in like a whole nother way, and just talking about it like really totally solidifies it. Just today we were like hiking and I'm like, gosh, I really want this to I want this to be in our backyard. Like, I'm just so done here. But like now talking about it is just a reminder that, you know what, it's not in my, I don't have control over the situation. I just have to continue trusting that it's going to be okay in the end.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can reach me at Surrendered Birth Services on Instagram or email me at contact@surrenderedbirthservices.com. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting the follow button. Also, we'd love for you to leave a written review of the show so that more people's births and lives can be changed by the love of Jesus and the empowerment of accurate birth education. If you really enjoyed this episode in particular, please take a screenshot of it and post it to your Instagram story, tagging Surrendered Birth Services. If you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to fill out your interest form. Also, if you're interested in taking my childbirth classes, birth consultations, or having me as your birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to my website for online and in-person options. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands. Do you have any questions before we start? I know you've done this before, but
No,
any
I'm good.
questions?
And my mom brain's super serious, so I wrote it all. I have check boxes. So
Nice. Good.